Creator of all that is, giver of life and enduring abundance, we give thanks. Since coming into our conscious existence, we have been foraging for truth and purpose, all through our process of remembering, then forgetting, then seeking to find our essence, our I am presence. We have been heaped with lie upon lie, deception upon deception, big and small, insidiously, relentlessly. You might say we have been gaslighted, in fact, when trying to find our ground, staying centered, knowing truth from fiction. Life isn't like a bookstore where you find the fiction neatly organized in its own section on the shelves. No, as we awaken, and it is part and parcel of the journey we are on right now, we are finding the need to explore, question, and discern everything as it all is, conceivably in a sea of deception, with waves of deniers, believers, persuaders, deluders, preachers and priests, doctors and lawyers, policymakers, politicians, and scientists. The list is endless, with any or all possibly vested in their own area of sham. For some, it is educated, indoctrinated into them, laziness or blind trust, for some ego or greed, others vile evil. The veil, more like a shroud, of untruths is thinning quickly as each revelation, each storied figure is seen for what they truly are, as if apparitions. It is only through our cognition and connection to divine creator energy, us, fractals, all one, that we find ourselves in greater knowing, more understanding, discovered purpose, and expanded joy. As with the energy in meditation, seeking ceases, the mind calms, and we are able to see our arrival at our resting place of knowingness, a place replete with divine grace and humble gratitude. Let it be so, and so it is.
Hello. Today is May 3rd, 2026. The ballots came in the mail. I have a question. Why did my deceased wife, who died last August, and the county knew in September the documents are all in, and still the county mailed her a ballot? That's not due process. That's not how it's supposed to work. But that's how it's working. My name's Ron Broman, Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly. We're the real deal. I'm still looking for one additional court deputy. This is a bit of a whine and a snivel, a complaint on how poorly I was treated. Well, I was placed in the Marion County Jail by Cortland Geyer for contempt when there was no contempt, and spent 5 days without any medical care or prescription medicines. And I was sick before I went in, and I was much worse after I came out. And I'm waiting now to go to the hospital to have a stent put in due to the more rapid decline of my health. That's not cool. So that's coming up. That could be why I'm out of breath and don't sound quite right. But what I have to discuss with you is the property at 14725. The complexity of the issue is incredible. And trying to solve it is even more incredible. It's a real brain buster. Aida died without a will, having transferred the possession of her property to a Roman living trust. And we can't find the papers, can't find the trust. She died without a will. I'm the only living Roman, so nobody's come forward with the will, nor have they come forward with the trust document. So how do you resolve all of these issues? That's the conundrum put on me that I'm doing my best to handle. This is not what I wanted to be doing. So I asked ChatGPT kind of a basic question on how does one deal with a loan that needs to be collected? That was the question. Collecting on a loan, whether you're the original lender or a third party, requires you to satisfy both substantive legal requirements, providing the debt exists and it's owed, and the procedural requirements. And they went on to establish the debt. You have to really prove that there's a debt and all the steps to go through, legal standing and collection laws and so forth. But then it says validation of the debt, verification of the documents. You have to know what the contract is that is being collected on. So how do you do that? And they go through statute of limitations and several other things and a practical reality check. And then I said to him, I'm a co-signer with my deceased wife on a mortgage, not on the title, by intent. I'm 14 years older and expected to die first. She died without a will. She had placed our home in a trust on the title. How does one place a property in a trust with an encumbrance? There's an encumbrance, all right. As long as I'm alive, I'm the surviving spouse. No, the trust documents have not appeared either. So I was told the mortgage company needs to support their claim, and they had the authority to bill monthly and the ability to foreclose, as they notified me in their paperwork. I am the surviving spouse with no minor children. I live in the house and have for 30 years. And Chad answered back with, you have a lot of moving parts, that's for sure. I'm also a man and I'm entitled to common law and equity. I'm not required to be an admiralty or in their color of law form. Their law form states, "He who can be deceived, let him." Okay? I'm not deceived. Therefore, I want verification of everything that you say. Support your claims, all of them. Now, Washington County has a trial court administrator named Richard Mulmer. I've met with Richard several times over the years. I met with him and my daughter recently, well, a few months now, to discuss probate and how that's handled. And he told me at the time that he had the proper court, and he has sent me 2 letters responding to correspondence to him, stating again that he has that authority. Well, stating you have the authority and providing evidence that you have the authority are 2 different things. He has provided no evidence. The presiding judge, Rebecca Guptill, who I see is on the ballot, has not provided her credentials either. She declares that she is the presiding judge of that court, probates Washington County's issue. It's not the state of Oregon's issue. I'm curious to where she has jurisdiction. I don't think she has any. But if she does, she's required to provide the evidence. We have also notified Caprice Morrissey, our occupant of the office of sheriff. She's the occupant because she has not provided her credentials and bona fides to occupy that office. She's just doing it. And she refuses to see us. And we've held open court in the lobby of her building, and she knew it. And she had the doors to her office locked and nobody in there. So we held court in her office's building, her buildings in her lobby, and read everything in open court, provided all the evidence that was available to us at that time. And this is Four Corners rule. You have to appear and you have to put your documents into the court. If it's not written and filed into the court, it does not exist. So quiet title's underway, and Kevin Barton, the DA for Washington County, has declined us several times. So we do our best, but we cannot control those that do not honor their obligations. And those persons specifically on Washington County at this time are Richard Mulmer, Rebecca Guptill, Caprice Morrissey, and Kevin Barton. There's a couple more, but you got the message, right? So all of these people and Frontier Mortgage know what we're doing. They've received our documents from our court, and Article 3, 1 Supreme Court claiming original jurisdiction, Article 7 from Oregon's Constitution, and Amendment 7, our civilian common law and equity court of record. Now, I filed all that information about everything that's going on into that court, which is the legitimate court, because it has provided all of its bona fides and credentials, and they have been accepted, acquiesced, and defaulted to. That part's done. However, Article 7 amended has not been able to provide any evidence that it is legitimate other than they have been operating this de facto color of law incorporated governance for 115 years, and they love it. Defraud, lie, cheat, and steal. He who can be deceived, let him. They've been having a field day. The very beginning of their amended Article 7 violates Amendment 7. Can't violate that. So your Article 7 amended is void ab initio. From the very beginning, it's fruit from the poisonous tree. So here we are in a position that we didn't see coming. And by we, I mean the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly, the provisional government on Oregon. We read all the rules. We read all the credentials, the information, the statutes, the dictionaries. We really understand what we're talking about. And we did it step by step for 8 years. So they know, and they is the U.S. DOJ, the U.S. Marshal Services, Courthouse 740 at the Marco Hatfield Building, the FBI, the U.S. Marine Corps, Department of Homeland Security, and ICE. The state of Oregon, aka all caps state of Oregon, executive, legislative, and judiciary, 36 sheriffs and 38 prosecutors, the Oregon State Police, and the Oregon National Guard all know and have acquiesced to. They've many been tried in open court. We have verdicts from our jury in values of over $20. Yep. And we have true bills and presentments from a grand jury. That's not lightweight stuff. So we have quiet title and probate coming up. Now, this is just here, but it's being enacted all over Oregon in all of the 36 counties. I don't know how often, but often enough that a big stink has been made in the last few years that the foreclosure's equity doesn't go to the person who lost the home. The old man that lost the farm because he could no longer work and make the payments, yeah, throw him out. It's not how it goes, guys. It really isn't. You folks are here for our peace, safety, and happiness, and we're not getting it. That's why we have an Article 1, Section 1. That's why we implemented it. So that's the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly. Through me, the old man and surviving spouse that's neck deep in this prove your mortgage, prove your court, prove everything that you have to prove to be able to stand up to me, jura summa imperi, a sovereign man on the land and soil of Oregon, as defined in Bouvier's Law Dictionary, 6th edition, 2 volumes, 1856, only in the United States of America. Only here, in this imaginary, wonderful land that's codified in our constitutions, is the man and the woman sovereign to the state. We, the people on Oregon, created Oregon, and we sent the documentation of that creation to Washington, District of Columbia, to change Oregon, part of a territory that the United States was in charge of. The United States had jurisdiction over the territory of Oregon, and we supplied the United States Congress and executive and judiciary with our petition to be one of the several states. Written in 1857, deposited with the authorities in D.C., and it, we know, was passed by Congress. We have proof of that. It was signed by Buchanan. We have proof of that. But we cannot find nor will the Oregon State Archives, the last 7 secretaries of state, and 3 deputy secretaries of state refuse to provide a viewing of the original statehood documents. They refuse. Now, how do you do that? How do you refuse a petition for redress of grievance to see our documents? Now, I can agree that if Fred off the street walks in and says, hey, I want to see the statehood documents, I agree that you might decide Fred at that time doesn't really need to. But if Fred persists and Fred has a need and it is required and you don't, then you fail in your obligation. You are no longer what you say you are. You can't support it. So the secretaries of state cannot support that what we have as facsimiles of our Constitution is actually that. They refuse to. And we know that Matthew Deede's 2 State of Oregon histories are both with published errors. And the showing of the documents will prove those errors. So from the very beginning, not before March 1861, but after March 1861, Oregon fell straight in line with the federal replacement for our democratic republic, which is a confederation and perpetual union. Excuse me a minute. Itchy nose. So the position we're in on Oregon, we can't get the statehood documents. We know that they exist, or they did exist. We're a state, we're the last state, Go read Nevada's Constitution. On the first page, you see it's not a state. It's bogus. They're all territories. The United States of America, the 33 states of the Confederation and Perpetual Union, underwent a coup March 1861. And Oregon, the state, honored that coup. Both the history books were published after that coup, and both the history books support that coup. That's a fact. We found that out, and we've published it, and they don't care. So then, how do we do what needs to be done? Well, we read the Constitution and formed a social compact. And what do you do with the social compact? Well, you inform everybody that needs to know, which we did, what you were doing. Then you do it. Then you inform them that you did it. And then they have the opportunity to rebut or acquiesce, or they can applaud you and join you, such as SCOTUS. The Supreme Court of the United States joined the Fifth Appellate Court and said, yes, the SEC cannot take Zarcasi 603 US 109 2024. You cannot do that because you're depriving him of Amendment 7 trial by jury. Well, you can't just say Amendment 7 trial by jury. You have to say everything that's in Amendment 7. That's why they made it an amendment. Article 3 is found in Amendment 7 by men and women. And the Courthouse 740 downtown Portland has Article 3 judges, AOs, administrative hearing officers, or magistrates. And they're all without a proper oath. I checked that years ago. They found me to be a vexatious litigant. Yeah, filing into a court that isn't there. And he who can be deceived, let him. And they deceived me. They also perjured themselves. That's another story. We're just trying to get Oregon into the ranks of constitutional Republican form of government this year. And along the way, we have to deal with this property that I was completely out of. I had turned everything over to Aida. The business, 2013. The house and property, cars, trucks, everything by 2014. We were divorced by 2014 or 15. And stayed that way for several years. And then she said, will you marry me again? I said, sure. And we did it again. That's why I'm the surviving spouse. So this was not supposed to be happening. It was sprung upon us. And we're doing it. And we're doing the best we can possibly do. Our court administrator is Charlie White. And she has handled the paperwork for this with excellent fashion. All of it has been signed, sealed, stamped, witness, proof of service, green cards from the post office, all done, published, acquiesced, defaulted for 8 years. We are who we say we are. There is no rebuttal. If you want to rebut our court, it's written down. It's defined exactly how to do it. And we published that information. Nobody showed up. Not one of the 7 secretaries of state that don't know where our statehood documents are. Oh, additionally to that, the first time when I was looking for the statehood documents, I also tried the Library of Congress and the National Archives. You cannot get Oregon's statehood documents or a copy from any of them. I've heard people say they have them, but they never show up with them. They lie. I paid $500 one time to get a copy. Didn't happen. In any case, how do you go about doing this? So we have to learn. So some of the questions are, can a property be placed into a trust that has a mortgage? What about your status as a cosigner? Yes, I'm a cosigner to a proper loan. And the proper loan has requirements. And if they fulfill those requirements, then we're into it. And I'll be looking for a loan modification because my Social Security income will not pay the note here, nor will it pay the utilities, which are killer. So, yes, I have status. Is there missing documents? Yeah. Does a trust exist? Says there's one, but you can't find it. If you can't find it, I don't guess it exists. Maybe it existed at one time. And she has an intestate estate. And I'm the surviving spouse. And I'm the surviving Vroman. And the trust is named Vroman Living Trust. No trust appears. The deed's recorded, and it's recorded with a mechanic's lien by me and quiet title by me. What happens when your wife dies without a will? Ooh. Get your will done, get your paperwork in order. Honest. It is such a mess. A good friend of mine since 3rd grade, that's a long time, since 3rd grade, is going through this with his son. His son died, and he has property and cars and everything, and he thought the same thing as Aida, that he would die after his dad, and he had lots of time, and he didn't. So she died, and there is not a transfer of title, as I am the surviving spouse and sole heir. So what's required? We're going to find out. So it says here, demand from your lender to prove authority. It's a reasonable request for the documentation to be precise. Yep. The original note or a valid copy. Define valid. Current owner or service, the chain of province or provenance. What's really happening? there's a preponderance of evidence that says that something like the Sestacue Trust or Sestacate Trust is accessed by major purchases like a home, and it pays off the deed. And what they're collecting from you is part of the he who cannot be deceived, pardon me, you who can be deceived, let him. If you'll go for the deception, they will deceive you and take your money. But if you don't, what happens then? We're going to find out. Is there a risk of foreclosure? Yes, there is. There's also the probability that there will be no foreclosure and that there is no reasonable, lawful, legitimate mortgage. All they have to do is prove it, and it has to be done in a proper court. And their court, which is amended and illegitimate, has received our claims of cognizance, and they have not rebutted them. So this is all coming up soon. I'm going to get a stint. They say recovery is one day, and I should feel much better. And then onward and upward. We still have 36 sheriffs that need to have their proper oath and credentials in order so that we can regain a constitutional Republican form of government. And I yield.
They do not want to let go of this. They do not intend on losing here. And we do not intend giving it back to them.
And then the bullets started flying. And then he jumps out of the car. And he's got both his hands up. And he got out of the car, and he had his hands in the air. He's like, just shoot me then. This is what you want, to shoot me. And they did. They shot him dead. With his hands in the air, and I saw it. I swear to God. He was just walking with his hands in the air. And they shot him. And they shot him dead, and then after he was down on the ground, they shot him 3 more times.